Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, NBA playoff edition. Today, we are back talking the NBA playoffs. The conference semifinals have just concluded, and now we are moving towards the conference finals in the East and the West. So we have the L7C basketball aficionado with us, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
Martin, ain't nobody afraid of anybody over there in Phoenix. Everybody in the league knows that, bro.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Patrick Beverly, who maybe depending, we might have to touch on some of his comments, but we are here for the games. We are here for the games and the conference semifinals that just concluded. If you guys don't know, we had Miami and Philly. They were playing against each other, Milwaukee, Boston, Phoenix, and Dallas, and Golden State, and Memphis. Evan, where do you want to start on those series?
Let's start in the East with Heat Sixers. So the Heat take this, obviously. Hobbled Joel Embiid, had the orbital fracture and the hand issue, and you name it. Guy spent so much time on the ground when he was able to play, but it was just too much to overcome those first two games in Miami. And again, just not the James Harden. I think we all are at this point, very comfortable with saying is not going to be the James Harden of old. So you add that in with just again some great shooting from the Heat, some phenomenal. I think we need to start talking about playoff Jimmy Martin basketball.
Yes.
Guys just elevated his game by like 8 or 9 points in the playoffs from the regular season. He knows when winning time is. He willed this team in the bubble to the NBA Finals, and they are 4 wins away from doing that again in 2022. Martin, thoughts on the series as Miami takes this, and again, just kind of general reflections on some of the matchups, what Miami was able to do to Philly, those kinds of things.
I think the biggest thing for me is that until Embiid got there, it was getting to a point where I thought Miami was going to sweep Philly. It just shows how important Embiid is to that team, because once he came back for when he came back Game 3, they won. Game 4, they won. And then Miami took it from 5 and 6. So it just shows its importance. And it shows, man, that James Harden, like we've already said, he's not the same as old. He can't be that guy anymore. He did have one game, I believe it was Game 4, where he had 30 points or 31 points, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I know it was in the 30s. That was his best game. And people were trying to ask if the old James Harden's back. But then we go to Game 6, and he only takes 2 shots in the second half of a closeout game, knowing if you lose, your team's going home. So those were the biggest things for me. And you're right, man. Jimmy Butler does not get the respect he deserves from mainstream media. One of my favorite moments, Game 6, when they beat Philadelphia and he's leaving, and he straight up says walking to the locker room, guys took Tobias Harris over me. Like that. If that doesn't tell you what type of guy Jimmy Butler is, he remembers. And I don't know what the Sixers team does at time of recording.
We need to correct the record on Jimmy, because Jimmy's wrong there. Philadelphia did not choose Tobias Harris over him. They chose Al Horford over him.
Well, he took it as the perimeter
player.
Eventually
salary dumped. He did not play a year, and now he is a huge part of our second series. We'll talk about in a second of why Boston's had such a good year. But no, I mean you're exactly right. So the numbers on Jimmy buckets here. So in the closeout game, 32, 8 and 4. Game 5, 23. Game 4, 40. Game 3, 33. The first 2 games at home, both Miami wins. Only 15 points. That was his worst shooting performance this series of 5-16. Game 2, 22 points, but to go along with 12 assists. I mean, he's scoring efficiently here, fairly efficiently. Put up a lot of shots. 3 times in this series, he had field goal attempts above 20 or more. So I mean, he's just completely elevated his game, and it's just been it's been amazing to see. I don't know that I knew he was capable of it. Not that I'm like playing doubter here, but I mean, it's just, again, we never saw it in the regular season, but he's striking while the iron's hot. He knows it's winning time, and he continuously goes out there and performs. I think that they've had some good support there. Victor Oladipo's coming back at the right time. Some solid play from Bam, obviously. So that has certainly been helpful. Max Strus has kind of picked up with some of the minutes from Duncan Robinson. Been playing really good on the defensive end, as opposed to what you normally get out of Duncan there too. But I mean, just a well-rounded. It's a bullpen by committee. You never know outside of Jimmy who you can guarantee is going to go out and get your points. But well done by Miami. Philly afterwards. I thought it was interesting. Similar formula, right? So we had 2 shots in the second half of the closeout game. And I mean, these are all the similar things we were saying about, going through the Ben Simmons thing last year, right? So you're Philadelphia again. You got one of your stars not performing at all in the second half. It was fourth quarters with Ben last postseason. And then the post-game press conference, Embiid said, I'm sure since we got him, everybody expected the Houston James Harden. That's not who he is anymore. He's more of a playmaker. Martin, that's like the most backhanded compliment I've read. Like, it wasn't outright mean. It wasn't what they were saying about Ben last year, but I think reality with James is reality. He's he's still a good facilitator. We every once in a while he might be able to get you, like you saw in Game 4. But Martin, what do you think of those comments before we shift it over to the Boston Milwaukee series?
Man, it's really telling because James Harden, he has the stigma of not performing when it matters most in the playoffs, and it's pretty evident now, man. It really is, and I'm hard on him when it comes to this point because obviously those years in Houston when he was having 50-point triple-doubles like it was nothing, but then get to the playoffs and ran into those Warriors, and there were still times where they could have beat those Warriors, but it's every time, man. Every time in the playoffs, something happens with the guy. I think this was probably the second worst moment for me. I think the worst moment was when he was on the Rockets and they lost to the Spurs in Game 6 at home in a closeout. And the Spurs didn't have any of their top players. And Jimmy Butler then James Harden then went to the club afterwards. So it's like, I don't know. He's one of the best shooting guards, definitely of the generation, one of the top 10 shooting guards of all time. But it's like, man, I think anyone who was trying to make those crazy comparisons that he was better than late great Kobe Bryant or Dwayne Wade, that's never should have been comparisons. That's dead now. That is done. So
it's way dead. So the Heat advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I do have a question though, Evan.
Go ahead.
For James, because I'm a hard no on this. Do you give him the Supermax?
Oh, absolutely not. So, again, it's one of those things where, if you're an agent, you got to ask, you got to threaten that you're going to leave and you're going to get nothing for me and those kinds of things, whether it's now or, a year from now. I'm not sure the contract specifics is if he's expiring heading in the next season or he's done now, but you got to ask, and then they'll figure out something in the middle. I mean, I think realistically, everybody wants to get theirs, kind of thing. But, at a certain point, reality hits you. My guess is he'll be returning to Philadelphia, but, it'll be for considerably less. I think James has been 40 plus, somewhere around there. So, I mean, I expect him to find something like 28 to 34, something like that in that range. So, and I mean, that 34 would be high. 28, people might laugh at me and say low, but I mean, I think James Harden is realistically is probably a $20 to $30 million player, and James would need to sacrifice for them to add there. So, I mean, I think, for Philly, I'm not sure what they can do pick wise to do some movement around. I think Danny Green obviously had the knee tear towards the end there. He's up there in age. Tobias Harris, I expect him to try to figure out how to move on, somebody to take his contract, attach a pick to him or several picks or something to clear up some room and see if he can get some wiggle room either in a sign and trade or to sign somebody else. But they just got to get depth. I mean, Andre Drummond can't be your backup. No, wait, Drummond they traded, but DeAndre Jordan, I should say, can't be one of your backup bigs. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, they just got to get some depth. So, Tyrese Maxey is still a phenomenal piece to have in the background too, as he continues to develop. Shines so much this year. Shake Milton had a decent recurrence there, but Matisse Thybulle, since kind of early parts of round one, just been a nothing burger for them. One real quick note on the Heat for shift series. I do want to say, and I've heard this a couple different places, I certainly don't take credit for the phrase, but there's been a lot of conversation about addition by subtraction with what the Heat were able to do in this series, as Kyle Lowry's been injured. So obviously they went out of their way to sign Kyle to do the sign and trade with Toronto, signed that big deal. And, Kyle hasn't played a lot. He's been injured, and, he really hasn't performed a whole lot. But, again, this Miami Heat team gets up and down the court. They switch defensively. Kyle's a defensive liability. Much slower, much prefers a half court game like they ran in Toronto a lot of time. That, I think that's something to keep an eye on heading into the next series here. Before we say, I do want to interject real quick as listeners are listening to this. So in the background of this podcast here on Tuesday night is the NBA draft lottery. So that is unfolding right now as we speak. So we may take a break halfway through as they start to roll in picks. So we can make a quick comment on that. And the Cavs are projected to go 14th, that we always talk about. And if they don't read their name, things are going to get really interesting here, Martin. So, but let's shift over to the Boston Milwaukee series. I think we both said it was going to go 7. Credit to you. You called the Celtics. I had thought Milwaukee was going to go in 7. And, again, I think there's so many different plays this series. I will stay true here that I believe the winner of this series wins the NBA Finals. I think I said that beforehand, just the level of defense we saw here. I mean, there were times where Miami took, some quarters off. There were times in the Western Conference where, Phoenix, Dallas, Golden State, Memphis absolutely took quarters off. Nobody could afford to take quarters off here in this series, Martin. So many different touch points. Not sure where you want to start with. So obviously, Tatum and Giannis, they delivered in terms of blockbuster showings. Tatum, that game 6 with 47 points. They were down 3-2, needed to win that to force a game 7. They did on the road. They did that. Obviously, Milwaukee was without, Chris Middleton. They're one of their primary ball handlers. Their primary ball handler outside of Drew Holiday. So, I mean, that was a huge, and that's, that'll be some of an asterisk, but, injuries are injuries. That's part of it. There's so many series that, over the years, people could have said, Cavs and, 15 was Kevin Love's socket or shoulder to get ripped out of the socket, all those types of things. But, I mean, Boston just, continuously, they had some games they got, 1 or 2 of those were close. They had some games, not go their way, but, they poured it on in that game 7. It wasn't even close, Martin, across the board. I mean, just the efforts from Marcus Smart battling injuries, the job Al Horford doing, just continuously sinking on Giannis and just taking punch after punch after punch, just so much physicality. Dude just playing a defensive tackle position, just having Derrick Henry running them all day. I mean, they had a game plan. Grant Williams came in, especially game 7, and hit 6-7 triples. They're able to advance. Just an impressive showing by Boston. Martin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agreed. I mean, this was one of the 2 that we had different winners. We both had it going 7, just different winners. And with the injuries and stuff, 100% agree. If Middleton played, I would have picked Milwaukee to win this series. And it looked like it was going their way, especially after that game 5, where in the final 2 minutes, they come all the way back and win that game 5 in Boston. They go to Milwaukee. Giannis drops 40 and 20, and that's still not enough to beat them, because Jason Tatum reminded people that he is ascending as well as one of the top players in this league. And then once they got to Boston, everything just went Boston's way. But you just talked about him in the first series. Al Horford he played a major role in guarding Giannis and scoring points.
Dude didn't even play basketball really last year. I mean, Oklahoma City was not interested in him after that salary dump. And then they, again, you think Boston's not happy about trading Kemba Walker to get him? Phenomenal.
So I think those were the things. And Boston, I mean, it's crazy because they were written off earlier in the year, and here they are now, 4 wins away from going to the NBA Finals. So it's just kudos. It's kudos to them. Milwaukee, I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're going to be back right next year. Giannis is going to get in the lab and get better, but it was a hard-fought series, man. It's one of those series where it's just like, that's why sometimes your positioning and seeding matter, because this felt like the Eastern Conference Finals.
This was a legacy-making series for Jason Tatum. Didn't have to play a whole lot in that Game 7 because the team did so well. 23 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. Again, that Game 6 will be legendary. 46 points, 9 boards, 4 assists. Game 3, he took a lot of criticism. Was only scored 10 points. Awful shooting night, 4 of 19. Since then, dropped 30, 34, 46, and 23. Real quick, going to interject. The Cleveland Cavaliers officially will have the 14th pick in the NBA draft. So we're reading these off to listeners before they take their little break. Charlotte Hornets will go number 13. They are announcing these live. The number 12 pick will go to the Oklahoma City Thunder from the LA Clippers, part of the Paul George trade. So they've got a couple projected picks here to go in the lottery. The number 11 pick will be the New York Knickerbockers.
Sucks. Tragic. 10 looks like it's Washington.
Pick 10 will be the Washington Wizards.
Ooh, Spurs. Looks like the Spurs were the 9th pick.
Yeah.
New Orleans.
Dave Robinson there at the podium.
Ooh. Looks like New Orleans was the 8th.
Indeed it is.
Okay. Ooh.
Portland Trailblazers at number 7. Dame looking not too happy there.
What instantly puts the Kings in the top 4 pick.
Tell me if you've seen that before. Indiana will go number 6. Have you seen the Sacramento Kings draft in the top 4?
I don't know.
Maybe this year's Luka they'll also pass on too.
Well, now the Thunder will also have a top 4 pick. They have 4 and man.
Interesting. So disappointing night if you're the Pistons, you gotta be disappointed. You had one of the best lottery odds to get into the top 3. So that means the Orlando Magic will be also one of those. So your remaining teams are Houston, the Kings, the Magic, and I missed it. What was the other one we said?
It was Kings, Thunder, and then Magic, and Houston.
Yes.
Yep.
So one of those teams will win the number 1 pick. So we'll announce that here later. So we talk about the Cavs heavy a lot. They will indeed pick at 14. A lot of opportunity there towards the end of the lottery. I'm excited again for the Cavs, not the way they wanted the season to end, but I mean, you've got Jeremy Sohan, the wing from Baylor. Usman Jang is a really good combo forward, 6'10". Been shooting up draft boards like crazy from New Zealand.
Number 14, that could be right in his range. That could be Malachi.
That could be Malachi. Now the only thing going against Malachi is Malachi. A lot of people think kind of project to be a guard at only 6'5", so not that ideal. 6'8" to 6'10", wing of sorts. But obviously, just such stout defensively, incredibly smart player. Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's zone. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Again, and there's I'd love to see that. Blake Wesley's another name, kind of a smaller wing from Notre Dame. potentially there too. So I mean, a lot of options. I think I've heard some rumblings that the Cavs might be super high on Ty Washington from Kentucky. Although, again, I don't know that you draft for ability, not necessarily for position. I'm a firm believer. I wasn't always that. If you have a small forward wing, I used to say you draft the best small forward wing. Like, nope, sometimes you've got to grab the best guard like you would a Jordan Poole. If you're Golden State, when you don't necessarily, need them towards the end or towards the end of the lottery where you're drafting those kinds of things or, sign them, but it is what it is. So, Martin, any other thoughts, again, on just an impressive series for Boston and Milwaukee before we shift it west? I mean, just, again, shout out to Boston. Obviously had the head coaching change beginning of the year. It's paid off. I think they've just had a heck of a postseason so far, and I really like your chances next round.
Yeah, it's going to be. I wish that's one of those series I was like, man, I wish they can keep playing, or I wish they would have met in the Eastern Conference Finals, because that's how we both stated it was going to be. But both of those teams will be back next year. Well, obviously, one is going to be on tonight, actually. But let's go out west, man. We got to talk about the L7C Suns, the Phoenix Suns, and this is one we did not see coming at all.
We did not. So just as we saw, we're talking about the ascension of Jason Tatum, the one-man wrecking crew of Luka Doncic, and again, at what his age and what he's able to do. Again, I question heading into the series, Devin Booker's health. That wasn't why they lost the series. I still don't know that he was necessarily, all himself. But Luka just was an absolute freak, man. And they knocked off Phoenix, last year's winner out of the West, the best regular season record. How many times have we seen that where a team just loses steam towards heading into the postseason? They have a phenomenal regular season, put all their eggs in that basket, and whether it's not enough rest, whether it's not enough depth or wrong matchup in the wrong series, and they go down in another Game 7 behind a huge Spencer Dinwiddie contribution for Dallas in that Game 7, 30 points off the bench. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's been huge. Good contributions. Dorian Finney-Smith for Dallas too. Martin, yeah, I'm surprised.
I am too. And before I continue going on, the picks are coming in. The Kings get the 4th pick. The Rockets will be getting the 3rd pick.
Ooh,
right?
So Magic in Oklahoma City.
And the Thunder will get the 2nd pick, and the Orlando Magic will get the number 1 pick in the NBA draft this summer.
Wow. I think if you're Orlando, obviously, I feel like they've got a lot of good young core pieces. Franz Wagner, still got to see about, what happens with Mo Bamba, coming up for extension eligible soon kind of thing. They've got, just a lot of good young members of their core. We're able to get Wendell Carter in that trade where they, moved on from Vucevic to Chicago. But, they've been missing that key number 1 overall guy. So, I think for them, there's a lot of ways they can go. If you're looking toward the top of the draft board, there's been a lot of questions on who will go number 1. Jabari Smith, great forward out of Auburn. I still think, I think what Chet Holmgren's able to bring defensively, he's got to put on some weight. He's definitely got some like Mobley tendencies to him on the defensive side, can step out and hit threes. Again, and Paulo, I wouldn't overlook Paulo either, but I think Chet's got to be the guy. Maybe Jabari's maybe where they're looking at too, but congrats to the Orlando Magic.
And congrats.
Rough day for the Pistons. That's the biggest loser for me when I'm looking at this draft board.
Yeah, it's rough for them, but to go back to the Mavs and Phoenix, it was just so interesting because obviously it went 7. So Game 7 was in Phoenix, and Mavericks blew the brakes off of them. It wasn't even close. It got to a point where they were down by 50. And that was the second game in a row because game 6, the Mavs blew the brakes off of them. Again, Phoenix was up 2-0. Then the Mavs came back. It was 2-2, so it looked like the home teams were winning. So then Phoenix won game 5. Then the 2 blowouts. Man, I know obviously headlines are Luka, averaged 32.6, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Evan, when I was watching that series, I'm not saying it's the same, but since we do talk about the Cavs a lot in here in the series, no one thought they were going to win back in the day and started LeBron's ascension. I think about that time where he beat the Pistons in 2007. I really do. I really do with Luka.
Yeah, I mean it's got shades of it. We're never going to see. I'm not going to. I get where you're coming from, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but like it's definitely a shades of it conversation for me. Like I can see the similar mold, but yeah, I can't cheapen what I saw LeBron do in the Palace and in that series to overcome the Pistons. I mean that's an all timer. That'll the single-handed human performance, 24-20, the team's final 25 points.
29 of the last 30. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying from the performance-wise. I'm saying from the team, even though Luka did play phenomenal. I'm saying from the team standpoint, like this is a series that can change Dallas forever. And we did say at the beginning of the year, watch out for Dallas. They are a sleeper.
Yeah, I mean, we picked Luka for MVP 2 years ago. I mean, we did. Obviously didn't pan out, some injuries and stuff too. I mean, he's an incredible talent. A lot of your teams that are in the lottery tonight passed on this dude, or had the opportunity to, move up and get him, like Atlanta passed on when they did the trade swap. So again, just so the Game 7 performance, man, that's an all-timer the other way. I've never seen. I mean, at one point they were down 40 plus. Like it just. It was a complete whooping, man. It was. I can't believe Phoenix laid down like that. I mean, it just was inexcusable. Booker had 11 points on 3 of 14 shooting in the finale. Just across the board, I think that. It just was an amazing Dallas performance. Luka had blood in his eyes. It just came out his first couple shots and just went to town. Did you see that clip? I think I might have sent it. Did you see that clip of Jason Kidd calling defensive plays?
Oh yeah, they absolutely.
Had him mic'd up. I mean, we need more of that in the league. Like it's just. It was amazing. Again, him calling out, on the everything from the track to not letting, the roll guy, go into the kind of the middle of that quasi zone to, again, backside baseline, watching some of that stuff, like just phenomenal. I mean, just amazing. Again, another head coaching change there. So you've got 2 first-time head coaches in the East and West finals, respectively. So. Phoenix moves on. Anything else to say there? Obviously the DeAndre Ayton stuff looms large. James Jones, the former Cav, Miami Heat, NBA champion with LeBron, is now their GM. And, he's had some opportunities. Devin Booker's had some opportunities. There's history of Robert Sarver, the owner of the team, who's embattled in a whole bunch of controversy himself. Going cheap on things, but again, just they've all had opportunities to come out and say glowing things about we want Ayton back or we're committed to Ayton, and they ain't doing it. I think Ayton's out. He wants to go try to find the bag somewhere, and I mean, in my eyes, there's no way he's coming back.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back either. I think with Phoenix, they'll have to figure out what they want to do. But
Ayton for Gobert.
I could see it happening. I could.
Ayton for Gobert.
I could see it happen if that's the way they want to do it. I don't know what the issue with him and Monty is, but look, man, I mean, obviously it sucks because Phoenix, they want to get back to the finals, and I do like Chris Paul and Devin Booker a lot from a personal and a player thing, but 64-18, nothing to sneeze at. They just couldn't get. Sometimes when you run, and you know this from watching the basketball, sometimes when you run into that generational player, they take you down. That's just the way it is sometimes in the game of basketball. But I do think the Suns, they'll be back next year. Chris Paul said he's not retiring. So we will see. We'll see.
All right, so let's move to the other series. We predicted it going along. The series ended up going 6. Again, I voted this one on my heart and not my head. I think I did put the asterisk on of like, I know it's going to be Golden State. It was Golden State. Tough. You had the John Morant injury. Towards the end of the series there. I believe it was Game 4 in Golden State.
Yeah, it was Game 4 because Game 5 was the first game he
Game
didn't.
5 was the game, and Game 5 was the blowout, which
That
scares
was bad.
me for like just thinking about. You want to talk about high floor, low ceiling teams. Of the 4 left, it's Golden State, but that's the Golden State MO, right? Like they can turn it on. No lead is safe, against him. But when they bottom out, they can bottom out, man. And they bottomed out in Game 5. Memphis just dogged them. They were playing whoop that trick right back at them after Steph Curry said they're going to go in there, and their goal was to do that. So I love that for Memphis. I feel bad, man. Just how things ended, but heck of a run. Again, just it was kind of weird that Ja had the knee injury after the I don't know if you just call it uncoordinated grab for the ball by Jordan Poole.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was struggling with something a little bit beforehand, but obviously that put it over the top. Martin, the series had a lot of different looks to it. Again, I think Klay took some criticism because he wasn't quite, the Klay that we've known to love. But again, it's Klay's come back from 2 crazy years of injury too. Jordan Poole stepped up big. That final game, was it 22 rebounds from our big guy off the bench?
Mr. Luke.
Out of left.
Yes, it was.
Kevon Looney, yeah.
Yes, it was. It was 22 rebounds.
Out of left. They just beat up Memphis on the boards. All these little guards just came and crashed the glass, and led to extra possessions and second chance points. Like it just was. A phenomenal effort by Golden State, kind of bullpen by committee type thing. I think there were some good opportunities for young guys like Kuminga to play a role. Wiggins' transformation continues to happen before our eyes, focusing more on D, not settling for mid-range jumpers. That was always his MO, was dude doesn't play D and the dude just settles for long twos. He's really settled into a role here with Golden State, and the Warriors advance.
There's something else though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you did bring up like the Klay Thompson in the 2 games, but Game 6 Klay is truly a legendary figure now in this sport. It's kind of crazy because he did drop 30 in Game 6, showing we talked about the injuries and him coming back to that moment where everyone knows Game 6 Klay now. The most famous one to me is when they were down 3-1 against Oklahoma City, and they're at Oklahoma City in Game 6, and he drops 40 plus. It's a real thing, and he posted it with the Jay-Z line on his Instagram. Michael, take your pick. Jackson, Tyson, Jordan, Game 6, and then he posted himself there. So I love it, but it's real, man. Game 6 Klay is real.
It's a real deal, man. Yeah, Steph did Steph outside of that blowout. Steph had 29, 32, 30, 27, and 24. Never had a game with less than 4 assists. Had some big rebounding games in there too. Talking about just undersized lineup. Had a game with 9 boards and 7 boards. But for Memphis, Jaren Jackson, continues to rise. Dude just got to stay out of foul trouble. That's his biggest thing. That's his MO. Is I think he had at one point, I think through Game 5, I think he had almost the max amount of fouls you could have in any game. So obviously you get 6 per game, but dude just, can't stay on the floor. So that's an area of growth for him, I think. Memphis in the offseason, they've got to re-sign Tyus Jones. They're going to have to pay up for him because folks like the Cavs and Phoenix and so many others are looking for a facilitator to come in off the bench, and run an offense. And that was why Memphis was able to do so much without Ja there. So, I mean, when he was injured. So, they got to pay the guy. I think they've got to continue to find some depth, develop Williams a little bit more, the rookie this year. So, but nonetheless, we've got the Final Four, Martin.
Yes, we do. In game one, they are warming up right now in the Eastern Conference. We have the Miami Heat against the Boston Celtics. We're at the beginning of the year. I don't think a lot of people had these two teams in the Eastern Conference Finals, especially Boston, the way they started. But here we are. Game one is in Miami. It's the number 1 versus the number 2 seed. ESPN is going to have the Eastern Conference games, and TNT is going to have the Western Conference games.
Good nugget. I didn't know that.
Yep. So it'll be every other day. So today will be the Eastern Conference game 1. Then Wednesday will be Western Conference game 1. Then they'll be alternating until the series is over for both of them. Evan, what are the keys to victory? Like, who do you have winning this Miami-Boston matchup?
I'm sticking to the winner of the last series goes to the NBA Finals out of the East, and I'm picking the Boston Celtics here. I think their defense is, starting from the end of the season on, their run. I mean, they were dead in the water in January, man. Like, we were all, laughing at them. We had, we're like, man, they're just completely tanked. And then they just went on that impeccable run, and it's all been because of their defense. How they switch. They've got guys that can switch. I mean, Al Horford can hang with folks to an extent. They're just so long with Brown and Tatum and Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart. I think they've got so many bodies to throw at people. And for a Miami team that already struggles, not struggles, but I think struggles to find consistency with one guy other than Butler. Again, I with Boston, I know, I'm getting minimum 15 points a night from Jaylen Brown, and obviously Tatum's going to get his 20 plus, those kinds of things. Marcus Smart's usually good for 12 to 15 minimum, those kinds of things. That I really like just how they're playing defensively. I think they're firing on all cylinders, and I just worry about some of those Miami shooters. Suddenly your airspace gets a little tighter to get those shots off the length of Boston. Again, I think they're going to run them off the line. I think you're going to funnel them into to Horford and Tatum. Again, barring injury, and we've seen injuries pop up on odds and ends. I'm picking Boston, and I'm picking them in 5.
Okay, so they would win in Miami. I said the same thing as you. Whoever won that Bucks Celtics thing would go to the finals. So I'm staying with the Boston Celtics too, but I have this going in 6. I do think Miami is going to put up a fight. I don't think a Jimmy Butler, Pat Riley team is going to go down any willy-nilly. Jimmy Butler right now averaging 28, 7, and 5 in the playoffs, and Tatum's averaging 28, 5, and 6. So I do think Boston will go to the finals, and it'll be in 6, so they'll be celebrating in Boston. And that would be on 5/27.
It'll be here before we know it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's flip west. So we've got Golden State vying for yet another return to the finals, where outside of 2016, they've not lost of their trip. So
they lost in 2019.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So again, they make it to the Western Conference, or they make it out of the Western Conference is what they're vying for again. But in the West Finals again, vying for the finals. Can Luka do it? I think he's got more help than I think we all, like you said. I mean, we didn't see this coming from Dallas, but I think he's got the right coach. I think he's got between Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson, and they've got some taller length in the front court too against Golden State's smaller unit. Does the series go long? I for sure think it's the 6 or 7 game series. Just with how how high ceiling, low floor Golden State is. But who comes out on top, Martin?
Oh, man. Dallas is hot right now. They really are. Warriors have been here before. This is going to be Luka's first time in a conference finals. I have the Warriors in 7.
I'm not going to pick against the Golden State in 2 consecutive series, am I?
You might, but now if Luka beats these Warriors,
tough.
I'm bringing back the 07 comparisons. I'm gonna keep doing it because this is gonna be crazy.
I got to go. If we're going the 11 comparison with NBA culture and vernacular, I'm going Cavs for Mavs, baby.
Okay.
Luka does it in 7. They continue. I think they try to use their size a little bit more than Memphis was able to, seeking out Steph Curry and switches and pick and rolls. Obviously, Steph and Draymond and Klay are going to have a lot to say about this, but I'm just kidding. Golden State in 7.
Okay. Hey,
I want Dallas. I want Dallas to win. I can't be that naive though. Golden State I just think their ceiling is much higher than Dallas's ceiling. Dallas just brings consistency night in, night out. That can slay the Giant, but I'm going to say Dubs in 7.
So we both have Celtics, Warriors in the NBA Finals.
That we do.
Okay.
In game 1 tonight, East.
And game 1 tonight, and it's already going to be looking a little different for Boston because Al Horford and Marcus Smart are both out of game 1.
Not boding well. I'm going to change. That's a good point. I'm going to change mine to 6 too. Boston in 6 with that. I'm going to give Boston a pass with not having 2/5 of their starting lineup. Although Time Lord's in.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's do some quick hits though that you got down for us, which were some really good quick hits. I do want to start with one that wasn't listed. How do you feel about those new trophies? The new Eastern Conference, Western Conference.
I'm indifferent on them. Like, I'm all for a refresh to make it look cool, but to me, there's something historic about keeping them the way they are. Like, I'm a history nerd, and like again, just like the same trophies that the legends of the past have hold up. Like that's part of the visual. That's part of overcoming the mountain, getting to the climax, getting to getting to the promised land. Is when you hoist that thing above your head, you're hosting the same thing that was forged in the same cast that the legends who walked the path before you did. So I'd say that's my thought.
I think my only thing is obviously like the Magic, Larry, and all that stuff. It's kind of interesting that they win all those trophies, and there's actually no trophy like named after Michael. That was the first thing I thought of.
Michael probably owns the rights to it, and he'll wait till the NBA pays him enough. Dude's smart businessman. He didn't get this far without being one.
That's true, because the only trophy I would have thought, which would have made sense for me, would be the Finals MVP, the 6-0, and all that. But obviously, Bill Russell is more than well deserving for that. But that was one of those things. But let's go to the other rapid fire things. We had MVP announced, Evan. The Joker won.
Hats off. The Joker won. I picked Joel. Again, just Joker's stats were better than his first MVP year across the board. Had to do so much more without Michael Porter Jr., without Jamal Murray.
Watch out for them next year.
Watch out for him next year. You add in year 2 of Bones, and you get a few more pieces in there. I think DeMarcus Cousins was a great find for them.
He was.
Joker. He was phenomenal. 15, 18 minutes a night, and I think he's more than serviceable. Can still overpower people. He's definitely slower than he used to be, but I think he's still a serviceable big. So,
and it looks like Joel came in second place. I think that is the second. He came to Jokic second 2 years in a row.
That's tough.
But there's nothing you can really do about that. But Evan, new news in this NBA, another rapid thing. This week, I don't know where ESPN got this idea, but Pat Beverly has been on ESPN and he has said some crazy comments. What do you think about what Beverly's been saying?
I got to think that, there's got to be a secondhand market of people talking crap about each other, right? Like, he's definitely breaking some code here. I think, I struggle with that on finding an audience to come out and trash folks. He's thinking, he's like Draymond, consistently you're going to get the trash talk. It's what you expect. They're the same person in a win, same person in a loss. Like, that's what they're going to bring. Like, I think Beverly's bound to be a talking head on some ESPN show in 3 years when he's out of the league. But we've seen this before, right? Where, players start to tease the NBA post-career desk job. And, sometimes they do it through, just crazy takes. We saw a lot of that with Kendrick Perkins on Twitter and here and there. And now he's a regular feature on stuff. But obviously not to Beverly's extent. You can't call the point guard a traffic cone. He might be. I don't know. I think he's certainly more serviceable than a traffic cone. But it's got all of our attention. It's got the clicks and the hot button likes and everything else. So, there's a good content day for ESPN. I don't want it shoved down my throat on every channel for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I personally don't like it because I'm just like, where is this coming from? And now he's been on Get Up and ESPN every day. I know it's only Tuesday, but he's been on every day this week. And he was on Stephen A's Laura talking about what's the beef with you and Chris Paul. I don't know why. And I think Dame said it better that he's on TV now and he thinks his word is the gospel. And Matt Barnes said it the best. He's talking like he is one of the top 5 players in the league and he can just belittle Chris Paul when Patrick Beverly is not one of the top 5 players in the league. He's not one of the top 25 players in the league, 30, 40, 50. So
I'd be surprised if I couldn't name 50 players better than Pat Bev.
Yeah.
I think he's a good post 50 player. He's definitely top 75, I think, but no.
So it's just absurd. And and some of the stuff is just stupid. When he was talking about Harden should get the super max, that's just ridiculous. But it's one of those things where you're right with Perk, but they had that time when Ryan Hollins was on and he was saying reckless stuff and they kicked him off. So I don't know if he'll get to that point. But Patrick Beverly, he just needs
Ryan Hollins. Oh my word.
He just needs to stop. As soon as he said James Harden deserves the supermax and to get more, and then I don't know if you tried. I'll be
honest, I actually missed that.
Yeah, he said he deserved, and then he tried to say that he tried to ask are there 3 point guards better than James Harden right now? And that was just asinine. So that's really
controversy sells, Martin. Controversy sells.
That's true. Evan, anything else, man, in the basketball? Oh, I do have one. This is actually from our producer, Justin.
Oh, that's right.
Ackendale. He had the question about if we get a new champion, which potentially it may be, we are going to get a new champ. The Bucks aren't repeating. Who's running the league now? But I think that answer, if the Warriors win, it's right back to business.
Yeah, I think it's definitely still back to business if Golden State wins. These 2 Boston Milwaukee teams, I don't see them going anywhere. They definitely got to continue to add. They got to continue to, find, March buyouts in 2023 from teams, to add depth to folks. They got to continue to find, late second round picks that can come in and give them some minutes, and maybe you'll find a diamond in the rough like a Jordan Poole for Golden State, those kinds of things. Milwaukee, I got to think is got to be right back up there, assuming that they're healthy. Health is such a huge piece of being able to run the league and be be somebody who can, put together a dynasty-like run. They definitely need to add some minutes, outside of, give them all to Grayson Allen and stuff, and got to get Middleton healthy. But, I like those two teams. I'm trying to think, again, like if
there's Memphis if they can get there.
There's Memphis, absolutely. They potentially could continue to make a climb. I think there's a lot of potential for some trades that we just don't know about yet. Where we've been talking Bradley Beal for years. Is that a guy who moves to the right team and suddenly, they're one of those 4 or 5 teams, in that range in the East or West, and now they're right up there contending and they're toward the top. So, I mean, there's a lot to be unfold. That's why the NBA is my favorite soap opera. But, again, I like to answer that question. I'd say Boston, Milwaukee, Golden State, Memphis are your 4 for the next 3 years until something changes.
Anything else happen?
That's it for me. Strong start for Boston. 12-6 opened the game on the road, down 2 starters. So obviously a long way to go. Basketball's a game of runs. We'll see how the rest of the series goes. Martin, pleasure as always.
Same. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. Remember, NBA Conference Finals going on right now. Miami and Boston, Golden State and Dallas kick off tomorrow. And we'll be back to review those conference finals. And we're going to be in finals time. So make sure you are on the lookout for that. Again, thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C. Signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.